Welcome to my podcast, Extraordinary with Neman. My name is Neman, and I'm your host. I'm extremely excited for my guest today because he's coming all the way from sunny California to already almost winter here in Chicago, but for a lot of important conversations to have. He's an award-winning actor. He's now even content creator all over social media, viral on a TikTok for all the wonderful impressions that he is doing. So many different talents that I cannot wait for all of you to learn about today. And I don't want to waste another second. And I'm going to go immediately and say hello to the incredible Nic Few.
Hey, man. How you doing, Nic?
Hello, Nic. It's so great to have you in Chicago.
This is one of my favorite cities. I did a show here called Chicago Med. And I fell in love with the city after working. And I love coming back here. And I love seeing you, man. I remember my first time meeting you at the restaurant, and I was like, that guy is amazing.
We met inside of the restaurant, and I also felt the same way about you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy that the life somehow kept bringing us in the same rooms together.
Absolutely.
And like, we always have so much fun.
Yes.
So I do want us to have fun today. But
Let's have some fun, man.
Listen, yes. But I also do want us to cover some important topics.
Of course.
You blessed me this morning, okay? You said something that was off the camera that I'm going to repeat right now, but it really stuck in my mind and it's not letting me rest. I was like, we have to talk about this on a podcast. You said one sentence. You said, I worked so hard to achieve the moment that I feel free. And it just stays heavy on my heart because I could relate. And I know many people can relate. And I know many people are still working hard and did not achieve the moment of that freedom.
Yes.
So I want us to go there. But before we go there, I want us to go all the way back and figure it out what caused you feeling not free, right? So I want us to go back all the way and let's talk a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up? Where you were born and raised? Tell us about your life.
I was born and raised in a little city in Georgia called College Park. I had some big things happening with myself as a child that doctors couldn't explain, and even some speech therapists couldn't explain. There was an issue with my skin where part of my face would be lighter. It wasn't vitiligo, but there were light splotches in my face, and we didn't know what it was. And I also had a terrible speech impediment. I say had. You don't really get rid of it. You learn to work around it. But I have a speech impediment. And so, and those were, I stuttered horribly. I had a lisp. And so a large part of my childhood, I felt like I was imprisoned in my own mind. And then realizing early on that I knew that I was different from the other boys as well. It was a bunch of things that I was dealing with as a child. The positive part about that is that I learned empathy. I learned to think about things a lot because I couldn't communicate effectively. I would get laughed at, or people would assume that I was an idiot. Some teachers were like, something wrong with him.
Like, kids be brutal, man.
And adults. But so, yeah. So I had a lot of time to think about things and observe, which I'm so grateful for now, because your trials can really, if you use it right, it can really help your triumph, right? An actor is a listener, a keen observer of humanity. And if you have empathy along with that, you know, for a performer, it's gold. So I was actually building myself to be a craftsman in this, going through. I mean, my parents were very diligent with having speech pathologists. with going to dermatologists, trying to figure out what's going on with my skin, why my skin was light in some places.
How old were you? Do you remember those things? Or
I remember everything.
Or it's more that your parents are telling you. So you do remember. You're already in certain age where you can remember. Are those some of your first memories? Or
Absolutely. Absolutely. Growing up in the black church, they just believe that, hey, get him up here. He has a speech impediment. God gonna fix it. Put him in the pulpit. Let him talk. So they would sit there for hours trying to communicate. But I as a young person, I saw people looking at me weirdly. I saw people treating me differently. And I understood what that was. I saw how I looked compared to other children. And the only cure for what they didn't know what it was makeup. They were like, put him on some makeup. And I did not want that. I was already being made fun of. I was like, man, I'm going to wear some makeup on my face to look normal. And I sucked my fingers. I had a lot of stuff going on as a child. There was a lot of stuff I was doing. Now I'm really thinking about it. I'm like, dang. I never really sat back and thought about.
And did you ever try to figure it out why? Like you said, like, sucking the finger and stuff. Like, did they ever, when your parents were taking you to the places where to gather professional help, did they ever try to explain it? Oh, it's because who was in the house? Mom, Dad?
Dad, and my younger brother. I have a younger brother that's 2 years younger than I. I had a very loving house. My parents doted on each other. So there was a lot of love. So in the home was fine. It was when I left home, and again, as a child that could not speak effectively, your other senses are heightened. I heard and I saw everything because I was ashamed to speak. And so I just noticed. And what I did, and I'm also old enough to realize too, that part of it could possibly be what I put on myself, because I felt so different, right? So it was a compilation of a lot of things going on, but it made me a thinker. It made me a keen observer, and I'm appreciative of that because the fine details matter to me. Even when I'm making my silly videos, it's the details that really push it over.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Tell me then more about the school and stuff. Like I see you have no problems with your skin now. It's so beautiful. How did we overcome that? When? What age? How did you figure it out? Ever? What it was? Tell me about that.
Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. No, I'm just kidding. It's not makeup. No. I learned that my diet affected my skin. And my mother could not breastfeed me, and I hated the taste of milk. And so at the nurses and stuff, I would get this milk and stuff, and they would make you drink it. And I noticed that there was this flaky light thing that was happening in my face, and I think cutting the dairy at that time helped out a lot.
Oh, wow.
But we still don't know what it was. I did a lot of meditation and praying, like, God, please, just make my face one color. I do not want to walk around two-faced. I'm already a Gemini. I don't need to be... right.
Four-faced.
Right. Don't do it.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but so I think it was partially my diet. I know my dad really pushed drinking a lot of water for me. So... And then I fell in love with water. So that changed a lot for me. But no, people, I was more insecure about it than anyone else. I remember destroying all of the pictures I could find in the house of me as a younger child at one point because I did not want people to see.
Ever to see that. Yeah. Oh, are you sad about that now that you?
I'm sad about it. But my mother saved a lot of them that she kind of put away that I didn't know about.
You still then have some pictures from childhood.
Absolutely.
How long it took to disappear, to evens out with your natural skin?
I would say all the way up until like late middle school, high school.
Ooh.
It got smaller and smaller, and then I grew out of it.
Yeah, and were you able to notice the improvement, the disappearance and stuff?
I didn't notice so much because I was so insecure. And I, and again, I remember I was telling you, I I was different from the other boys. I had these feelings about other boys that I didn't want to,
That you didn't want to feel, because
Absolutely.
Oh, we are going to have to talk so much about that. But I do not want to forget immediately to ask you about the dairy part. Did you ever end up going back to drinking dairy once you felt like that you are being cured, or you were most like dairy-free majority of your life?
Most of my life, I would now at a pizza party as a kid. I would,
course.
But I do not drink milk to this day. I do not like the way the milk tastes in my mouth.
Well, not only did you drink milk, now at this point you're fully vegan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But also I was one of my favorite teachers early on was, she was vegetarian. And I fell in love with her for the way she carried herself. Her disposition, she was beautiful. Her skin was amazing. And I would ask her questions about, what is it that makes you, she goes, oh, I don't eat animal products. And so, Miss Abdulaziz, I remember you changed my life. And so that's how I became vegetarian first, and then.
How long ago that was? It seems like then it's like a lot of like.
That was in, she was in high school when I was like, nope, no more of anything.
So like then you've been like almost like vegetarian, vegan for the like last 20 years or something like that? Oh, wow, that's incredible. I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
So how was it back then? Like, nowadays we have Beyond Impossible Burgers and like in a Burger King, Taco Bell, and all the places. How was being vegan 20 years ago?
Oh, you were a freak. In the South, where everyone's eating ribs and bacon and all that stuff, for me to go, because I couldn't speak clearly. So
Yeah, so it's like, I just don't want it.
So they thought I was a full freak. They were like, man, what is this kid is got so much going on, and he doesn't eat meat.
Yeah.
To tell people from the South you don't eat meat is sinful.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I totally feel that. Like, it's very similar to where I'm from. Like, it's another continent, but like in Montenegro, it's a very we must eat meat, like to survive, to live, and all of those things. But like, it's so impressive to me that at such a young age you made that decision. But it seems like you primarily made decision based like that on how you wanted to feel, right? And like you just stuck with it.
And I observed a person who just seemed, her disposition was different. How she talked to people, I felt like she had an air of royalty. And I wanted that. Not that I didn't have that in my family, but I saw a person, I was like, what is it about you that makes, and then she told me, she's also an incredibly smart woman, and she was genius, but she was, also
a lot of geniuses through the history tend to be vegan and not consume that. So I'm so happy you stuck with it. Like, for me, it was always animals. Like, I just love animals so much.
Me too, I love
and then later on discovering that like, oh, it's better for me too. How great. I was ready to sacrifice my health, like to not contribute to the torture.
Right.
But finding out that it's like so much better, it's just so great. And then what I wanted to ask you then, because you went originally for your health, how did you develop such a love for animals later on? Was it like always there, or now you feel like I feel so much stronger connection now that I'm vegan? Like, I see a cow and I'm all like, I love you.
I did grow more into that way, but remember, not being able to speak earlier on, animals didn't judge as much, in my opinion. So I was always around animals. We had a forest by our house before they developed it. And so I would go out and I would find turtles and frogs and snakes, and those were my friends. And we always had a dog. My parent, we always had a dog. And so when I look, I started thinking, when I look at my dog's eyes, they look very similar to pigs' eyes. They look very similar to, chicken's eyes. These little souls, they have souls. If I don't want to eat my dog,
Oh, it made me so sad now that you said that you felt like more comfortable around animals because they wouldn't judge you.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my God, broke my heart right now, Nick. I was like, why am I feeling so sad about that?
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way, but till this day, I never had an issue speaking, so I could not even imagine. But how did you overcome that? Like, I had a privilege of watching one of your plays, and I just want the world to know, and I posted about it and everywhere. It was like one of the best plays that I've seen.
You.
It was so good. It's an amazing. It shows the historic, realistic event that happened in the past, which we can talk more about. But you are a lead role, and you spoke a lot.
I know.
Okay, so how did we come from having a problem with a speech to someone now who is like lead in a play on a theater and speaks every night, sometimes probably even twice a night for an hour and a half?
It's insane. So again, being in church, even though I had the impediment, they made me attempt to speak. And so I got acquainted with stage and not being as frightened as I would be had I not had that experience from being in church and having every Sunday we had to speak. We had to do a synopsis of what we learned in Sunday school. Mine was just a little rough coming out. But then I had speech pathologists in schools. That didn't work as much as I thought. I learned some techniques. I learned to sing things out rather than try to speak them, because people that sing don't stutter. Well, you don't stutter while you're singing, I meant to say.
Yeah.
And so I learned little tricks. I would sing things out. I would try to tap or force things. But it wasn't actually until I got in college where I met Tom Jones. Tom, if you're listening, I love you so much for what you did for me at Brown University. Tom was my speech teacher. And I went to this unified audition called URTAS. Now, I had kind of mastered how to speak things that were written out. It was easier for me to communicate that way. Like, it had to be already written out. It had to be, coming off the top of my head was the problem. More so as I was getting older. There are moments when I got a script and some words would trip me up and I would go back into some habits. So speaking off the cuff was dangerous for me. But I could learn a monologue. I could sing that for 2 or 3 weeks and then kind of lead myself into speaking it without stuttering as much. And so I auditioned at this unified audition, and I got into so many great colleges, NYU. I got into Juilliard. But there was one professor at Brown University, Tom Jones, that looked at me and he said, "There's something going on with your speech. And if you come here, I can help you with that." And he called me out, and I didn't think anyone else caught it. I thought I was so good that no one was going to catch it. And I said, "Okay." And he brought me to the school. He ended up being my saving grace there, because it was such a culture shock being in this university. It was a very big culture shock for me. But he took me to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they put a camera in through my nose, down my throat, and they let me see what my body was doing when I was stuttering. So I would say a sentence, and he would say, "No, see what you're doing there? See how you're holding there?" He was showing me all this apparatus is going on in here. He said, see how you're holding in your throat right here. Try to release that and say that again. Now make this sound. And I was doing it, and for some reason that visual clicked in my mind. And I was able to communicate freely without that fear and without that. So I'm thinking all this time, was it just psychosomatic? Like, was my brain just, how did this one meeting with this one doctor change my, and I have not stopped talking since. You couldn't get me to, it was like imagine at 20-something years old, having your voice
back. That's
freely.
Yeah, I cannot even imagine that, because I was like, I'm surprised, like it was 20 years.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I could communicate. I was able to do better as I got a little bit older.
Getting better, but it was still there.
It was still there, and it was still I got anxiety, and there was still like, oh God, is it going to come out? And there were moments where it just wouldn't come out, and I would get stuck, and I would get stuck on a word, and it was looked like
Probably the more scared you are,
Yes.
the more it was happening, right?
Absolutely.
It's like a public speech and things like that. That was happening to me with reading, actually. Like if I needed to read out loud, like in front of a lot of people, I would also kind of not be able to read. And I remember my family decided to put me in front of TV because all the shows that we have in Montenegro are always subtitled, because like we're always watching shows from more America or like from Latin America in Spanish and things. So they placed me in front of what we call soap opera, I would say telenovela, to watch like a Spanish soap opera. So the only reason they wanted me to do that is so I can learn to read very fast, because those things on TV, they're disappearing, like all the time. But instead of me learning how to properly read, I learned Spanish instead. Because I was
of course you did.
I was not focusing on reading. I was focusing on their words and saying, and again, there was no way. It was too quick for me.
Yeah.
I was like 7 years old. I couldn't read the sentence.
Right.
They already switched to another one. And that was goal of my parents, why they placed me in front of the TV, because a lot of parents were like, don't watch TV, do things. But my parents were very intentional about me watching the TV, and they found something interesting, which was soap opera. They're always like crazy, so that I can like be interested about it, so that I can learn how to read. But instead of learning that, I learned how to speak Spanish.
That's amazing, though. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But it just that story reminded me of this. But I'm so glad you were able to went through it, and you said it felt great, right? Like it.
Gosh, I couldn't. And then when I graduated, I moved to New York, and I signed with this agency, and one of my favorite actors who just recently passed, rest in peace, James Earl Jones, I realized he had much the same story. Mm-hmm. One of the most famous voices in Hollywood had a speech impediment. He had a stutter just like mine, or worse. Uh-huh. He worked with a speech person throughout his life, throughout his career. And when I listened to him, I could tell that this is a person that's been concentrating on speaking. Mm-hmm. It was so pristine and was so not like there was so much effort behind it, but I could tell someone had studied linguistics and that was actually having help. Mm-hmm. And so that made me feel amazing. Like it's amazing how throughout my life, God, universe, just always kind of like boop, gave me like a little a nugget of like, see, you're not alone. Look at this word, you're not alone. It's gonna be okay.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. That makes me really happy. Well, let's talk about times that you felt very alone. Mm-hmm. And I know I can relate to that. And you already mentioned at about the age of 15 is when you're realizing that you're not like the other boys, not so much interested into girls, at least not in the way that they expect a 15-year-old boy to do it. For me, maybe even came later. I think I hit puberty very late. It was like unusual. I kind of was going slower in my development. So like, I think by the time maybe I was approaching my 17th birthday, it's where like I started figuring out like, oh, I'm entering the puberty. It was really late for me. All the other boys were already like at a 15, which now it's starting even sooner. It's crazy. Like with all this milk and dairy and hormones and stuff, like, come on, kids and girls are being in a puberty with like 8, 9 years old, which is like really scaring me. But that's not the topic today. I just had to say it because I'm against dairy. So I'm like, gonna use every opportunity to talk against it. But anyway, about 15 years old, and you're realizing.
Actually, I'm gonna be. You know what? I now that I think about it, it was actually earlier. Mm-hmm. My brother and I would go to. My dad was a fireman. When we were younger, became the fire chief, but he was a fireman when we were younger. And when my mom would take us up to the station to visit my father, as my mother and father were, canoodling and doting on each other, my brother and I would run off and explore the fire department. And if you've ever been in a fire department, back long, long ago, before political correctness was a thing, those firemen, they were away from their wives and girlfriends. So there was porn all in the bathrooms. So my brother was like, let's look. And so we would go and look at the magazines and go in their rooms and look up under their beds and go in the bathroom and find their magazines. And one day I was really disturbed. I started crying, and God bless my little brother. He's like, Nick, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't think I'm liking this, what I should be liking, looking at these magazines. And he was like, well, it's just, you're okay. It's just sexual, sexual. And in the way that I could communicate at this time, I was still stuttering, but he knew something had hit me. And so I think that's when I first knew, like, I'm not paying attention to what I should be paying attention to according to society.
Yeah.
Like my mind is looking at something else.
Yeah, looking at all those hot boys.
Yeah. And I said, well, that's wrong. God hates that. Like, why would I want, why would I want to do that? And why is my mind doing that? I don't want this. And so that's my first, like.
But you communicated it to your brother?
I didn't, not that well. Not that well. But he saw, what the point is, he saw something that was going on with me that was upsetting me. We were both looking at these same magazines, and, he was like, oh, look at her. And
like, look at these girls, yeah.
And I was like, And I noticed that right next to my brother, there's something different about me. I don't like it. We were raised in the church, and I'd heard the passive homophobia and the use of scripture to condemn and demean. And so I didn't want that for me. Why am I having these thoughts this early? And so that began, and that was around like, I would say like 6 or 7, 8 even. That began my long journey of trying to figure out what this is about me, and what is this place that we subscribe to that tells us this about something that for me was natural, I can't chemically control that. If I could, I would. And I tried, man. I threw myself on the altar. I fasted. I prayed. My grandmother would clean the church. I would go up there when she wasn't, she was on the other side. I would go in there and just be on the altar talking to God, asking God, remove this from me. I don't want this. This isn't how. No, I want to please God. I want to be. And then I would start then I would grow, and then I would play games with myself, horrible games. Like I would go say, if I take a 3-point shot and make it, I knew I was terrible at basketball, but if I make this shot, then I like girls again. If I find a 4-leaf clover in this patch, my life will change. And if I find a dime, I freaked myself out.
And for how long were you not able? Now I'm surprised you mentioned that early age. For me, in a very early age, what I could realize is I wanted to play with Barbies. I wanted to, when I watched that soap opera, I wanted to be Cassandra and dance,
right.
and stuff. But I never realized why it's that. I just felt like, oh, I'm wanting to be like her, or like I'm wanting to play with a Barbie so I can dress them. I never realized that it's coming from place of me being gay, because I couldn't name it. I didn't even know a word.
Yes.
And for us, and I'm sure it's a very similar where you grew up, but for us, it was never spoken about. I could never heard someone say a nice word about it. So I didn't have a place where I'm able to say it out loud. And I want to know, when did you find that safe place for the very first time that you said it out loud in front of another human being, and who that was and when that happened?
Again, Brown University, and Reverend Sis, thank you for helping me come to my freedom. I joined the church on campus, and we had a preacher there who I just loved. She had locks. She was just different from any other preacher that I'd ever met before, any other minister that I ever met before. And she looked at me, and she said, "You know you're okay, right? God loves you." And I was like, why is she telling me that? And then all the things in my head are going like, oh, she's judging me. Oh, she's the trigger. The triggers were happening. And she said, no. God loves you. And you're meant to be exactly who you are. I see you. and you're fine and you're going to be fine. Do you understand me? And she made me look at her in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never heard anyone, no one ever said anything like that to me. And face to face, and especially someone that was of the cloth in the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I was overwhelmed, and I was, the shame was there, but then she kept talking to me and she brought me out of the shame into, this is something that you have no control over. I know. And she could see my hurt. She could see the years of self-flogging that I was doing to myself because of this secret. And I was dating women and everything. I was running so hard away from what was natural, what is natural to me, to please everybody else.
Yeah, everyone else and family. But it seems before you could tell her, she told you.
She told me. Yep.
And were you able to verbalize it after that and say, yes, like I am gay and things like that? Or how did that happen?
So I said I didn't say the word gay because, again, gay
it wasn't even used.
She said gay, but I was like, okay, I'm same gender loving. Something that wasn't as egregious as the word.
Yeah, it sounded, oh my God. Yeah.
And then, after I dipped my toe in that comfortableness, I started to walk, and I was like, wait a minute, she's right. All of these years that I have been faithful, all these years that I've been a good person, or tried to be a good person, I've kept an honest relationship with who I believe God is. Why wouldn't God change me? Right? Like, why wouldn't He change my heart, my desires? Like, why wouldn't that happen? And then that opened up a whole nother relationship with God for me. And that my favorite playwright, who I got to work with a long time ago, her name is Ntozake Shange. She wrote a play called For Colored Girls. And there's a line in the play, and she says, I found God in myself and I love her fiercely. And that line in that play hit me like a ton of bricks, right? Because when you think about it, how did God communicate with people before these chosen ones wrote the Bible? It was through spirit. It was through experiences, right? So your spirit and experiences, for me, has gotten, it's what the relationship is. It's what really God is for me. And God has told me many times, I love you and I made you just the way you are. And you are loved. And for anyone out there that's listening that is questioning yourself, I want to tell you I want to do for you what Reverend Sis did for me, and tell me you are perfect, just the way you are. God loves you and made you that way, this way. You being gay is beautiful. Yeah, and it gets better. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It's so wild that like we are having this conversation. I'm experiencing something in my private life right now about that. So like you saying those words now on this microphone without having any clue what my thoughts are, is how God communicated with me right now. And I love that.
Yes.
We are coming to that point of your life where you're at least going to first step of you accepting that this is the way you are, and you accepting that there is no need for you to change because God wanted you that way.
Absolutely.
Because if it didn't, you did all the necessary steps, and the God would make the change if the change needed to be happen. But it's
and the way my world has opened up once I acknowledged God's beautiful creation. How can one limit God? You don't think God could create human beings? we literally have people that are born with both sexes. So how do you think that this is possible for us to, all fit into two categories of, and studying religion helped me as well.
I was forced to study religion though, but the more I studied, the more I realized it doesn't, we say in our language, it doesn't drink water, which means like it doesn't make much sense.
Yes.
The more I studied, the more I was realizing that. But I do want to ask you now, again, after having that self-acceptance, and you're like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me, because that's something we all went through. I feel like almost every gay person, especially growing up a little, now, not nowadays, but, the 20, 30 years ago, we all thought there's something wrong with us and like we're fighting with it. But once you are in peace with yourself, now the hardest part comes, and at least for me was the hardest part, is to tell the world and to tell the family and to tell a brother and a friend and the girlfriend that you might be dating and things like that. So how is that journey for you? Who are the people you are turning to? Like now you mentioned somebody from the college who basically told you it's okay. Where are you going later on and saying it out loud to your friend, to family member, to brother? To who did you say out loud, I am gay and that's fine?
It started with my mother, and this didn't happen until maybe 6 or 7 years after that. I was at Brown finishing my degree in acting and directing.
So wait, how old are you at that point?
So like 20 something.
So yeah, pretty much, as people now say, that was a closeted life.
Absolutely.
Till 20 something. Wow.
Absolutely.
A lot of years.
I was also a late bloomer as well.
Yeah.
I was also a very, very late bloomer. I didn't have my first sexual experience, and this was with a woman. This didn't happen until I was 22.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I was very late.
Yeah, I kind of relate that to too, but just because like there was no way I could ever be with a woman. For me, it was like, not even if you, I don't know.
Oh, wasn't going on.
Like,
we're just saying we go together.
There was absolutely no way for me to do that. Right. So I didn't act on my homosexuality also till very late, like already in the 20s.
Me too.
When I like basically had what was your first kiss with a boy? Do you remember it? Boy, was I shaking.
Yeah, it was a shock. I think my first kiss. No, I did have a first kiss at like 19, 20, and that was with I was doing a show, and I was with this dancer in the show, and I ran off stage and I was out of breath, and he was like, "Oh, look at you out of breath," and then he just kissed me, and I was like, Oh.
He probably didn't even know that was your like first kiss ever?
No, he had no clue.
Oh. So that's why I was like so shocking for you.
Yeah, it was a shock.
I want to go back to you mentioned your mom.
But he also ate like Jolly Ranchers, so he also had this very fruity, his breath was very nice because he loves eating Jolly Ranchers. So I remember that. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
I thought you needed that detail. See, it's in the details, Neman.
No, that's good. That's good. Love the taste of her cherry. Love that. But I wanna talk, like I had two coming out experiences to my mom. The first time she denied it, and she just started crying, and she was like, no. And I was like, okay, because I freaked out. So I was like, okay, I won't do it. I'll change. That was the first one. And then years later is, man, do you know that I got married without my parents knowing that? Like, it's very sad, but yeah, I'm over it now. But sometimes when I think about it, like I already had a husband before I could like come out for the second time for my mom and be like, this time it's for real and there is no me like changing and doing anything. So I want to know how was your experience telling your mom, and what was her reaction? And
I remember driving down, I think it was the 405 in LA, and I was having one of these moments where I was like, Nick, you are not free. Your acting is suffering because you are not free. I knew that I could be, that I was a good artist, but I was like, I can be a great artist, but you're not free. And you're not free because you're not honest. You're not honest in your real life. So how are you going to ask your body to be honest on stage? How's that going to work? If you can't be honest with the people that love you the most, how are you going to? It doesn't work that way. And I'm gonna be honest with you as well. I also thought I'm paying my own bills. No one's helping me. And
that helps. Let me tell you.
Right, big time.
That helps.
And I was trying to get a house, and my parents were like, "Oh, we're not gonna help you get a house." Like, oh, wait a minute. I do all this on my own anyway. So what do I have to fear? And so I was like, "You're gonna take the step, and you're gonna call your mother right now." And then I started, that little voice in my head was like, "Okay, so she answers the phone. You have to say it. If she doesn't answer the phone, you don't have to say it." Well, she answered the phone.
Okay.
And I said, "Mom, I'm not sexually attracted to women." And she said to me, "Well, I knew something was up, but you ain't bringing no women home." And I was like, "Huh?" Did you call your dad? And I was like, wait. Go back. Go back. Let's unpack this. Why didn't you make it easier for me? If you do this, why did we have a talk about it? She said, "No, I was waiting for you. But you need to call your daddy." I was like, oh, God. Okay. So I said, "Well, I love you." She said, "I love you too. You make your own decisions. It's your life." I went, oh, here we go. I said, "Let me get off the phone with you before you say something crazy." And so,
but isn't that great though? It makes me so happy you had such a good time though.
Watch this. So I called my dad, and my dad said, "Hey, son, what's going on?" My dad and I sound identical, by the way, especially in our higher pitches. Anyway, he said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" I said, "Dad, I'm not attracted to women." He said, "Okay. So what are you saying?" That I don't. This is not as much as as much as I'd like to. I'm sexually, I'm not attracted to women. He was like, "Okay. So what are you saying? Say it. Say it to me." And I was like, "I like guys." He was like, No. I need you to say it. What are you?" And he made me say, "I am gay." And I hated the way that sounded. I was like, "God, I gotta say this again." And so I said, and he said, "Son, I just want you to be safe. Make sure you, just like I told you, my dad had this long talk with me about having sex with women and brought the banana out, put the condom on the banana, the whole thing." He's like, "The same thing with that. I want you to remember about this. I want you to be happy, and I want you to be, but I want you to be safe. I love you. You're my son. Do you understand that?" And I pulled over and I lost it. Because I never would have expected it. And then I called my brother, and my brother just cried. And I said, "Brian, why are you crying?" He said, "Nick, you're free now." And I was just in shock. Like, I had all of this support behind me, and I didn't know it. I didn't get it. I was so scared, right? So thank you.
Oh, I need one too. I'm like, oh my God.
So it was, that was a big lesson for me. And after that, I'm not gonna say, because I'm still an actor, and there are a lot of ignorant people in the business. They'll say, "Oh, he's gay. He can't play a straight." Yes, I can. I can play a character. I can make you believe I fall in love with a woman just as much as I can make you feel like I fall in love with you. That's my job. I'm an actor. Just like these straight actors can play gay characters, I definitely play straight characters very well.
No, so I watched you play one, and I believed you.
Yeah, right. So I was
like, ooh, excuse me.
The fear, though, fear of the industry, and the fear of, sadly, people that look like me being very hard on me, still made me a little bit like, I don't want to be fully out to everybody. I'll just live my life. And then I got tired of that. And then I was like, no,
I was
This
like,
is
we're
not
talking
enough.
about it in a podcast, so like it's too late for that.
It's done. That's a done data.
Yeah,
It's on out there now. But I'm proud of who I am. I fought for who I am. I've gone through trial and fire to be free and to be who I am. So I'll be damned if anybody forces me back into a box.
Or closet, that
Or
they
a closet,
say.
or
Yeah.
a damn closet. No,
Yeah.
I don't belong there.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I love when you said after you told your mom and told your dad and they supported you, and then your brother also did too, and then he said, you're free. That's exactly how I finally felt, because I felt like I told everyone on earth besides my parents, like that everybody knew. But to me, that was all that mattered. And I was like, only place where it matters, I cannot say it there.
Yeah.
And once I've done it, I also felt like, okay, now I can finally talk about it on the podcast, on the video, like online, anywhere. Like I can post pictures with my husband and things
Yes.
like that. All of the things that I was not able to do before, it definitely felt like, telling parents, it's like, this is all that matters. Now I don't have to hide it from anyone else in the world.
And people can feel when you're holding back and when you're not being your full authentic self. I think human beings crave authenticity. I think we do. I think we crave. That's why people like, I'm not even gonna go there. But I think people crave authenticity. It's attractive. It's beautiful. It's freeing. It frees up other people. So again, with my acting, I was like, man, there are levels that I haven't even reached yet because I haven't allowed myself to actually live fully. And one of the things that really hurts me the most, man, is to think about people that don't get to be free, that don't have the support that I have, that go throughout their entire lives faking it, and they die not having lived. That breaks my heart to even think about it.
And people, it absolutely breaks my heart because I recently thought about a conversion therapy, which is a thing in America where like people are literally go to the religious institutions and trying that with the help of the priests and church and all of it.
By gay people.
To change.
By gay people that are trying to.
But listen.
Have you watched the documentaries? Most of those people
I know.
end up going, oops.
I know.
I misled a whole bunch of people. This is not real.
I don't even want to go into that, but my heart, it's breaking for the souls that are going in it, believing the one that they are in need of changing because they don't, and hope that they will be changed because
we've been there.
Yeah. So,
it don't work.
It makes me sad.
Take it from me, it don't work. You don't want to see it, I'll see it. It don't work.
Yeah.
You can deny yourself your entire existence. And if that's what if that's what people want to do, I've also learned to go, do what you need to do for you. If you need to do that, do it for you. But I would never advise people to live their whole lives without experiencing true love and true connection with another human being based on people's interpretation of ancient texts that we all have evolved on in so many other ways.
In that sense, those ancient texts that you are mentioning, they're hurting people.
Absolutely.
They're hurting life.
Absolutely.
They're hurting us by like being judged by other people. They're hurting people who start to believe that they're on a need of change when they're really perfect with just the way who they are. So I want to talk about that with you also because you told me you've been hurt by some people who just got under your skin and you got to love them and become friends with them, and then out of nowhere they're like, oh, we are homophobic basically. We are not. To the point that you told me, like, you now almost interview people before going into
Absolutely.
your life. Tell me about that. Like,
So I'm gonna give you a first story. One of my favorite Sunday school teachers ever. I told her I loved her every Sunday. I told her that, I feel connected to you. I love you.
mm-hmm.
One day after church, our church, was United Methodist, was going through this thing where they were deciding whether they were going to have gay marriage or not, or gay ministers or not. And I was standing next to her, and she says, the thought of two men kissing just turns my stomach. I don't want to see that stuff. Not in my church. This woman who I thought was the epitome of love said that, and I could not believe it was coming out of her mouth. I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
It broke my heart. Someone who I thought loved me unconditionally, the way we're taught to love, or we're supposed to be taught to love. I heard her, and my mother, who knew I was gay, she didn't respond. She just looked at her. I thought, man, you're not gonna respond to this? And I hate that I didn't say anything afterwards. But the irony that one of my first experiences was with her son. Irony.
What you said? Sorry, repeat that one more time.
One of my first experiences, not full out sexual, but one of my first experiences with a guy was with her son.
Oh my God! Stop it!
And so I'm like,
stop it!
You, what is happening?
Oh my God! Like, well, that's a plot twist I did not expect.
Right, but see, there's always if you really look at people who are so headstrong against gay people, there's always a plot to it.
Listen,
check their browser. Check that browser. See what's in there.
Let me tell you, because the way she had her heart programmed the way she did, and that's hated to me, the way she pronounced it. God has blessed her with a gay son so it can show her real love.
Yep.
And I'm sure that was years ago now, right? Like, I'm sure by this point she probably has come around and
Oh, I would know. I haven't spoken to her since.
Really?
I'm very protective of my child, the child that still lives in me. I still have an inner child that plays, that loves doing theater, that loves people, but can be triggered. So, like I was telling you before, I make sure I know who I'm dealing with before I'm dealing with you. Right? If you a person wants to hang out with me, I'm gonna ask you. So, how do you feel about gay marriage? How do you feel about gay people having the same rights as you? Do you believe that God hates gays, or that gay being gay is an abomination?
Yeah.
I do not believe that gay is a sin or an abomination. So I have those questions because I don't want to get emotionally attached to people who deep down who are homophobic. I don't want that in my life. I don't want to leave myself open to that, because I know how hard it was for me to come out of that, how to reprogram myself. Now, am I free for you to come around? If you come back around and you say, "Hey, I'm different," of course I'll love you like you. But until then, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent from one another. Amen. Yeah.
I love that. I've had scenarios where I ended up being hurt and not strong enough to cut the ties because I was already emotionally invested. I had this girlfriend when I was like really young, and she was one of the first people that I told that I'm gay. And she was so supportive. And I told like she's the best person in the world, and she really understands it. And like she was even convincing me to tell other people. I was like, oh, there's nothing to be ashamed. Like you should say it and things like that. And then rumors came around that her brother is gay. She was so mad. She was like mad at everyone. She like wouldn't even want to talk to her brother if that was true. And she would be upset next to me. Like, they're like, oh my God, that said that he's gay. What the hell? Like, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be your best friend and like that you're encouraging and saying how great and fine it is. But like in that sense, I felt
Betrayed.
that
That's betrayal.
it betrayed, but also I've learned of this people out there, especially the girls, who are deep down homophobic, but want gay best friends are their little trophy.
As a trophy.
Like, yeah, literally, oh, my gay bestie, you know, like, so they can say to other things because it's not her family. So, like, it's fine. Like, your sin, it's fine because, like, you're not my family. But if it's in my family, then I'm not fine with it. And then you show the true colors.
And then you think about why wouldn't you want to be around the most creative, some of the most creative, the most talented, the most loving, the most people you don't have to worry about trying to get something out of you. You know, of course you want to be around that.
Yeah, I agree.
The way you want it.
But to my thing is like I was never able to cut her out of my life because I was like, I mean, you know, now I live in America. She's still on the other side of the world, but you know, we still like little touch Facebook and things like that. I love seeing how my Montenegrins are out there. But through the years, I continue being really close friends to her, even though that pain always stayed in me, knowing like, no, she's not real. She's not the real one. But again, as I said, I really think the God gifted that woman a gay son so that it can be blessing for her to learn the real love. Maybe you and I were placed in the life of some people, so we show them, you know, and God shows them through us. You know, that whatever beautiful love is, and that you know, my marriage, it's no different than any other, and that you know, somebody else doesn't love their husband better or in less sinful way than the way that I love mine. So I think we may serve as a purpose for some people.
And you can watch me from afar. You can subscribe. You can come to my shows. You will not be in my inner circle once I find out, because you don't get that. I found God in myself, and I love God fiercely, meaning I will protect the creation that God has made in me with veracity, right? No, I can, now I live my life by example. If you come around, sure, open arms. But I don't invite that kind of spirit into, because again, Neman, I fought too hard to be comfortable in this skin, to love this skin, to love all of the different facets of who God created me to be, right? I fought too hard for it. I've been through too much. And it's victory on the other side, right?
And I wanted to ask you now, because it seems like you basically grew up in church and like what's going a lot and stuff. What's your relationship with church now, and how do you feel about all of that? You know, I've seen some awful things in church when I was a kid. Like somebody even beated me up in a church who like was part of the church, or like there's that like a work for the church or whatever it's called. Like it wasn't priest, but like something similar. I don't know all the terms and names to translate to English, but like they literally beaten me up inside of the God's house. And I was just like never able to see that as I was like, who are we as a humans to build a house and call it a God one? It's like mine house, it's also a God house.
Absolutely.
And like, you know, so how did you realize that? And what's your relationship now with church?
I can visit churches. I can go to churches with my friends. If there's something that I feel is offensive or bigoted or homophobic, I will get up and exit. I will not make a scene. But
yeah, I was like, I'll get up and call it out. You know,
how dare it? No, but I won't shield myself. I won't be like I won't shrink. Right. One of the beautiful things, again, studying religion and philosophy, I was a religion and philosophy major, one of my first majors. One of the things about Protestantism is that it took away the necessity for a priest to intercede for you. You have your own connection, right? And I believe the connection that I have with God is mine, and it's specific, and it's clear, and I love it, and I'm blessed, and I bless. So I don't necessarily need a church organization like that. I like some churches. I'm not opposed to church, and a church has done beautiful things in the community. It has also done harmful and hurtful and embarrassing things. So once I found I see God and I talk to God all the time. When I wake up, when I see something beautiful, when I see something tragic, when I see something curious, right? I'm always in communication. I don't need the church. I'm always giving service. I'm always helping. I'm always kind, right? I'm always donating.
Yeah, we're not nice only on Sundays.
Right, right, exactly. And I'm not trying to change. I'm living by example, and I'm not trying to change you, right? But I am protective about what is in my circle. And yeah, so I don't subscribe to anybody's organized thing. I don't. Me and God too cool for that. I have my own, and I think everybody could or should. Yeah.
I now wanted to ask you, then your father is still alive, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, your mom, it's not, right?
No, she transitioned in,
It's been recently, right? Like,
22. Yep.
and how did you deal with that? Did you know it was coming, or?
She had cancer, so we knew that that when she was not on, we knew it was coming. But that's not enough. Though you know it, for me, though I knew it was coming, I still never expected it in some weird way. My mother was a very strong, physically strong person. So to see her in the state that, cancer really ravaged her body was horrific for me initially. And my mother's kind of person, she was like, look, my hair's gone. Can you believe this shit? Put your hands on it, touch it. She was trying to make me, I think she sensed that I was in shock by it. And so she was trying to, get me used to it and understand, what her body was going through. And so it was a tough couple of years. I actually left California and kind of moved back for like a couple of months. And so, yeah, my mother and I are so close, so close. We talked every single day, FaceTime or something. We talked every single day. We didn't miss a day. So not having her presence physically was hard for me. And I remember looking up, this is after the funeral, into the sky for the first time and thinking, sky, to relate that way to my mother I was like, wow, this is out of the norm. This is weird. My mother was such a firecracker. She was also so fair. My mother was a very fair person. Like if I did something wrong, she wasn't just because you're my son, I'm going, no. My mother was very like,
would tell you,
what did you do? Right?
Yeah, my mother that would be an instant, even when it wasn't my fault.
Right. Yeah.
And my mom's still doing it to this day. She's like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Let's start with that. And then I explain, but when do you miss your mom the most? Every show.
To to not be able to look out and see her face, because she came to every single show I did. So to not be able to see her face physically out there in the audience is and for her to be able to be with me, to see the awards and things that are happening now. Because again, she'd been through a lot. Her son had a speech impediment. For her, imagine a person that had all this compilation of things going on in their life to say, I want to be an actor. But more like, what, So for, she did get to see some of the things I was doing on TV and some of the shows, but I wanted her to see the full circle, the moment that,
And you won really big award recently, right? Tell me about that.
In NAACP Award for best actor.
That's incredible. That's like
doing
big
what
honor.
Yes, doing what I love, and doing what many thought was not possible for me. I think part of that was my freedom walk as well. I think part of that was Reverend Sis at Brown University saying you're okay. God loves you. God created you just as you are. You don't have to change for anybody. You have a beautiful heart. That was part of my freeing, I think. That was part of me actually getting my voice back, me conquering the speech impediment was that. I needed that. From an elder, from someone who had been around, who I could trust.
Tell me more about your acting life. Like you appeared in some series and some movies and things like that. But I think your biggest passion is theater.
I love theater.
I used to love theater when I was back in Montenegro, and it's so great. And it's, we talked about it before. It's always one take. There's no, let's redo this again. So tell me some of your favorite plays that you have done.
I think one of my favorite shows that I've done, The Talented 10th at the Roby Theater was a play that I again, it was me talking the whole time. Yeah. The whole time. But what the show was about was very important to me. About what happens to what happened to the revolutionary spirit after our revolutionary kings were killed. Like after King was killed, after Huey, and all these people during the civil rights movement were killed. There was a shift that happened in our community that went more towards capitalism rather than justice and human rights. And there was and my character was stuck in the, hey, we got to remember what the community needs. And it's not just economic gain. And the other characters like, well, we have to have economic gain to get, so just that argument was just beautiful to me. Also, A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare. I really love that show. I got to do that at one of the flagship theaters in the world, the Guthrie Theater. I got to play Oberon and Theseus. And playing the king, I was flown, I was zip tied and flown in from the house.
Around the theater.
Literally, like quoting Shakespeare. Never in my wildest dreams.
Did you imagine that will come to reality?
Absolutely.
I do want to talk about show that I watched. It was the double V. Right?
Oh yeah.
The V for the victory in the war, and V
show.
for the victory for the justice and equal rights, equal racial rights. And I love the show so much, and it was so emotional. And know that it was inspired by an actual real story and a young boy who wrote a letter to one of the biggest publications in that time in the United States, and it got picked up, and it created for people to talk about it. But in the play, not only that we are learning through the history what was going on, but we're also seeing some graphic scenes of violence against that young black boy just because he was black. You playing that show and basically reliving those moments that are actually happened not that long ago. Like probably your grandparents were already
Absolutely.
experiencing that. How does that make you feel? For us, knowing history, it's already it makes my blood boil. But imagine having to live it in the show every single night. What feeling that brings to you?
I feel like I'm honoring my ancestors. I feel like I'm honoring their memory and their struggle. And I'm enlightening a generation that may not see it as palpable as it was back then. It's still happening.
Yeah.
But it's not as overt. It's passive. But it's entertaining, but it's also enlightening and educating. There's a reason why certain people, it's why it's in our DNA, why pain and trauma and why, people are demonstrative and loud and not trusting. And there's a reason why. And people forget the root oftentimes. It's convenient to forget the root. We don't want to remember history through the eyes and the mouths of the survivors or the ancestral lineage. We don't want to hear it that way. It's too hard, or it makes people uncomfortable. It makes people feel guilt. But I don't look at it like that. I think we need, if we don't remember, there's a high chance we go back to times that were not so good, that were worse overtly. Yeah. And I think it's important for us. Like there are other cultures that, that say never forget, and we honor them. And I think that specifically Black people in America, we need to at least know the story. Everybody does. Everybody needs to hear it. From Black people to white people to all the immigrants. Everyone needs to know how this country was built, what it was built on, honestly and truthfully, and how do we avoid doing that again to other people.
I love that so much. Like out of all the responses that I mentioned, you could give me, this was really the most beautiful one, because as I said, I really focused, first of all, the show, it's incredible, and everyone working on the show, it's insanely talented. It's
Thank you.
so much talent that it's so real that those white boys, I hated them. And the reason I hated it because they're doing such a great job.
Yes.
And I think you told me they're one of the sweetest people that you
ever
know.
want to meet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, to me, it was like an anger, but now you saying I'm playing these characters and doing this show to honor my ancestors it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
They deserve that. They survived that. They died for that. So it's important for us to remember. And it gives me place in this country where sometimes you can feel like, oh, do I really have a place here? Absolutely. Right? If you're in a place and you're feeling alien and you're feeling like, man, do I really belong here? And you remember, oh, my ancestors put those bricks there. There's the blood in those bricks, the red in those bricks. Part of it is blood from my ancestors. There's a different kind of pride I have when I enter the campus. There's ownership, right? I had to explain that to some people at Brown University. They tried me. Oh no, I belong here. My ancestors built this campus. Are you kidding me? Oh no, I love it here.
Did people ever try to make you feel like you don't belong?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me.
So, being a 6'4" Black man.
Let's brag about it.
Well, for some people, your presence is uncomfortable. Because of certain stereotypes. And I realized walking into a place where there were not a lot of African Americans. I think we were like the number 2 or 3 people in our school to go through my program. So there was a cultural miscommunications. Cultural, like, I don't understand what's going on here. Why is nobody talking? And not realizing it was just a bunch of fear on both ends, right? And so, there was one point where, the conversation, and I think most African Americans that go to a MFA program, because there's not one in existence, I don't think today, where you can get an MFA in acting at a historically Black college. So if you want an MFA in acting, you have to go to a predominantly white college to get it. And so, and I think some of them know that. And some of them treat you accordingly. But what I found out was there's cultural miscommunications on both ends. And once we both let down the guard, we understood we wanted the same things. We want to be able to live freely and to be in our craft and work. That's what most of us wanted. And so it came up in school where, I was tried a couple of times by people who didn't understand socially who I was. Now, academically, I exceeded every bar, A+, beyond, But socially, it was like, your classmates are afraid of you. And I go, who? Who's afraid of me?
Yeah.
Let me talk to them. Oh, no, we don't want to put them on the, we just want to make you aware that, don't be that guy that people are. I was like, no. Who are we talking about?
Yeah.
I want to.
And for what?
I want to fix it. I want us to be.
Yeah.
And then it was, are you sure you're happy here? And I'm like, why do you ask me that? Yeah. And so,
that's so toxic, though.
they tried to put, it's gaslighting. It was definitely a gaslighting situation. But because I went to a historically Black college before, I understood what was going to happen. And I called that thing out on his head. I said, because they were trying to give me like a social probation kind of thing. I said, that doesn't exist. You're creating an avenue to get me out of a place where I belong. I am here on time. My work exceeds most of yours. I didn't tell you, but I have more education than most of you on faculty here. I didn't tell them I had all those degrees behind my name. I said, but I love it here. If you would talk to me, you see that, right? And also, I'm just coming out of getting my real voice. Remember, it wasn't up until now that I was able to communicate freely. So what they probably assumed me being like, socially not, it was just me not being free in my speech.
Yeah.
Right? And so I had to really, I had to fight for myself one time. And then they saw the real me.
Wait, you had to fight for yourself, like physically?
No.
No. Scared me.
No. I had to fight for myself, like, to be in the space.
I was like, you were attacked or something. So like my heart, like, skipped a bit. But I was like, okay, good.
I will never forget the head of the program. He's not the head of the program now, but at the time, during graduation, I get ready to get my diploma, and he walks up to me and he goes, "You far exceeded anything I thought you could do when you came to this program." And I turned to him and I said, "That wasn't a compliment."
No, but I see a quality there, like people admitting that they were wrong.
I wish he would have said that. Because how I interpret it was, I didn't think you were going to be able to make it. My thing was, I felt from day one there was an assumption about what I could do. And had I not taken it upon myself to challenge myself and to go outside the school to get extra, then I would have been written off. I had to fight for myself, meaning I had to go do extra.
Like extra work, and, rather than someone who was privileged and could do,
create opportunities for myself. Like bring shows that they never thought, shows written by other people besides European writers. I had to do that for myself. I had to advocate for myself. So I wish it were more, I didn't take it in that spirit because I was just like, yeah, you assumed the lowest when I walked up in here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I learned a lot. I gained a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
I learned classical theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't change that. And I met Tom Jones, the voice teacher that changed my life.
Oh.
So the benefits far outweighed the negative.
Everything worked out the way it was
Beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I wear the ring. This is the ring from the school.
Oh, is it that from the graduation or something like that?
Yeah.
That's in, I don't have like a graduation ring or anything like that, but in, my husband is Venezuelan. In their culture, they wear rings like that, and every color represents the major that they were doing.
Oh, cool.
So my husband is a dentist, so he graduated dentistry,
What color is
and
it?
his rock is purple, actually.
Oh, cool.
Does your being red has anything to do that was like art or no?
This was the school color, one of the school
Oh,
colors.
so the school was, okay.
And the reason I got this ring was because I was like, I survived some of the most crazy feeling of loneliness, and I've had the most beautiful revelations to my life, and I wanted to commemorate that. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Nick, tell me what you're looking forward to. What next? What is you're hoping for? Tell me what the future you envision for yourself.
A series regular on a hit television program. I'm looking forward to star in films. I like action films. I like comedy. I'm looking forward to marrying my partner.
Okay. Congratulations on the engagement.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another ring.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love them.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I'm looking forward to the access that being in this profession will give me, so that I can help other people, inspire other people. There's something about seeing a representation of yourself that I think is life affirming for people. Right? Like, I've seen so many Romeos that are in your shape and look like you, but imagine a Romeo who's 6'3".
I can see you
That
being
would
Romeo.
I've done it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, okay.
And it changes people's trajectory. It's not so much me preaching, it's just showing you, hey, this can live in this body.
Absolutely.
And cuts all this, again, on campus, people always thought
Man,
I
I
was
was
there for
fighting
sports.
people for 2 years. I still am about the Little Mermaid. People want to assign a color to mythical creature that doesn't even exist.
Yes, I know.
Like, so I feel
It's
you for
insane.
that, saying like, oh, I want to show that Romeo can be me. I can be Romeo too. So
Yes.
it's
Because that's what changed my life as well. A teacher of mine who happened not to be white took me to a play, and I saw actors. They were performing an August Wilson play with 7 guitars, and I saw these actors in Atlanta at the Alliance Theater. I remember it, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It opened my mind to so many possibilities, like seeing people that looked like me on stage, living and expressing with such beauty of language and fullness. I was like, I want to do that. That's what really inspired me to tackle the speech impediment, because I was like, I've got to do that. I've got to do that. So I want to do that for other people. I want to do that for little boys that look like me, that maybe didn't want to play football or basketball, but maybe we're tall, happen to be tall. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you for doing all of that. It's a Lord's work.
Absolutely. It's the Lord's work.
And somebody got to do it.
Somebody got to do it.
Listen, I cannot believe that we are almost running out of time, because like this probably was like the quickest hour 25 minutes in my life.
Has it been that long?
Like literally, because the conversation's so good, and I have like so many more questions. So like I'm thinking maybe we'll continue one day
To be continued.
and just had another podcast. But I do want to ask how my Extraordinary with Neman audience can connect with you. I do want to ask you about the topic of my the podcast, which is like extraordinary people, and you really are extraordinary. But one of the reasons I name it that way is because people always call me extra or too much. I want to ask you, have ever people called you that way? Answer me that question, and then I'm going to ask you how we can connect with you.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So I'm genuinely a loving spirit. I love people. And so if I see somebody I know, I'll go, oh, and I remember in Atlanta, this playwright, I saw her, and I'd done her play 2 or 3 years before, and I saw her in a place, and I went, I'm so happy to see you. And she went, really? You doing too much.
Oh my God.
That's you extra. And it broke my heart because I was being sincere.
Yeah, because that was your natural reaction.
My natural reaction was to open arms and love on her, and she couldn't receive it. And she thought that I was faking or not being real, and I was being real.
That's when hurts the most.
Valletta Anderson, that was you.
Tell her.
Yeah, I was really happy to see you, and I still love you. But that was low down what you did that day.
That's good because I feel the most hurt when people tell me too much when I'm just being all Neman.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing anything extra. I'm being myself, and that's when they call me extra or too much. And that's when it's the most hurtful. But this podcast has helped me kind of take that
embrace
off
that.
and be embrace it and say, yes, I am extra, but I'm also extraordinary. And that's right.
I love it.
Tell the extraordinary with Neman people, how can we connect with you? You're doing these amazing videos. There's a lot of acting in those impressions.
So I'm going to tell you, connect with me on Instagram at NICFEW, at NICFEW, no K, Nic Few. But come to my shows. I'll also be doing a new series, season 2 of a series on BET. Coming up, and y'all reacted pretty well the first time. Let's see if we can keep you up there. I'm doing a show called Fat Ham, which is a African American version of a take on Hamlet. In where is that? In Palm Springs, coming up. So follow me, follow my career. I'm also going to be in a film coming up.
Oh, beautiful.
And I talk back. Like if no, I don't be in the DMs. But if you're commenting on stuff, I talk back. I like and reply. Okay. So
well, engage with Nic. He's gonna talk back. Man, listen. This was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming all the way from sunny California to now already cold Chicago. But I'm so grateful for our conversation today. It was really one of the closest conversations to my heart that I ever had in this chair. And I really just pray to God that it finds people that it needs to.
Yes.
So I thank you.
I thank you too, man. I love you, man. I appreciate what you're doing and how you're helping us. I
love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. People, so much to take from today's episode. It was just really insightful, but it was also really inspiring. One thing that I'm going to repeat again because it really stuck in my mind, you work hard for your freedom and then you don't want anyone to mess up with it, and just stick by it and live authentically just the way you are, because God made you that way and you are perfect. And if anyone ever tells you that you're not, that you're extra or too much, you'll tell them to go and find less. I love you.
I love it.